Let us speak to a man who always makes me feel a little bit, if not a little calmer, at least a little bit more in the picture about what's going on. It's our business and economics editor, Liam Halligan, to look at this more. Morning, Liam. First of all, how is it up there at the Tory party conference? Is everybody in a joyful and buoyant mood, or is there a little bit of kind of awkwardness about the fact that they've U-turned on this so quickly?
Bev, you say all the right things. It's nice to see and hear you too. Here at the Conservative Party conference in Birmingham, it's a bit like the Labour Party conference last week. The politics is absolutely dominated by economics and financial markets. Last week it was all about a plunging pound and spiking borrowing costs, people concerned about their mortgage. This morning it's all about the fact that the pound has surged from about $1.11 to $1.12 on the reversal of that top rate of tax. There's a sense here among the party faithful. I've been at fringe meetings this morning, meetings of activists talking about policies on the edge of the conference. There's a sense that if only they hadn't mentioned they were going to cut the top rate of tax from 45 to 40%, it would have been so much easier. A 40% top rate of tax, Bev, it is not a radical policy. It was 40% the top rate of tax throughout Tony Blair's entire government and most of Gordon Brown's government during those new Labour years. But it's become a very radical and extreme policy in the eyes of many people because the government has now been forced to U-turn away from it. There's a blame game going on now at the top of the Conservative Party. Prime Minister Liz Truss has mentioned in passing in interviews over the weekend, this was Kwasi Kwarteng's idea. The Treasury, where Kwasi Kwarteng is, they're now letting it be known that a Chief Secretary to the Treasury, a young MP called Chris Philp, very smart guy, a newcomer to the top of politics, he came up with a paper before the mini-budget suggesting that this is a policy they could do. It's not a radical policy, it's not even a big policy in terms of the implications for government revenue. Less than £2 billion out of revenues of £900 billion. And yet it's become a litmus test for fiscal turmoil. And the fact is, Bev, Liz Truss wasn't going to get this top rate of tax cut through Parliament, so she's been forced to turn away.
Ah, I see. OK, that explains things a little more. What do you think about the relationship between the two of them, Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng? This is getting off to the most terrible start. I thought they had been good mates since university.
They have been good mates. They came into Parliament at the same time in 2010. They are close ideologically. They've written books and pamphlets together in the past. And they're trying to make the best of this, of course. I don't think there's any chance that she's going to sack her Chancellor. But I do think this is obviously a real test of grown-up politics and the difficulties of it. But beyond the personalities, beyond the political psychodrama, what does this really mean for ordinary people? A lot of people have got mortgages on variable rates or they're at fixed rates that are going to end soon. The fact is that interest rates are going up anyway. They're going up around the world. The fact is that currencies everywhere are losing ground against the dollar, and so countries are being forced to defend their currencies, as the Bank of England did last week. It's happening in South Korea, it's happening in Japan and lots of other countries. But the reality is interest rates are going up, and interest rates on the money markets, which decide where mortgage rates are going to be, Bev, they were just over 3% before the mini-budget, and they spiked up to about 4.5%, and now they're back down to about 4%. So the reality is that interest rates are going up. I think this mini-budget was just the spark of that rise in interest rates rather than the underlying cause, because the underlying cause is a huge long-term global trend away from the ultra-low interest rates that we've had for many years since the aftermath of the global financial crisis. So most of this can't really be lay at the door of government, but I have to say, I don't think ministers have been particularly good at explaining what's happening and why.
What time do we think Kwasi Kwarteng's going to speak today, Liam, and what do you expect him to say? What can he say?
Well, it'll be during the afternoon. I think there'll be a lot of contrition. Don't get me wrong, Kwasi Kwarteng is a really experienced, clever politician. He's academically extremely distinguished. He's written, very well-received history books. He's a very bright man, and he gets politics. I think what's happened here is that he, the Prime Minister, other ministers, they overreached themselves, the kind of excitement of getting into office. It's the pinnacle, obviously, of their careers, what they've been wanting to do all their lives. It takes a lot to get to Downing Street, and they overreached with this top rate of tax cut, even though on paper, per se, it's a completely reasonable policy, which will actually probably make the Treasury money. It won't cost money, it will make the Treasury money, because if you lower the top rate of tax, there's more entrepreneurialism and more people do more things in the UK, and it attracts investment. But he's not going to be making those arguments today. It's going to be all about contrition, and it's going to be about trying to move the conversation on to the plan for growth, towards the supply side policies, to the other tax cuts that the Truss government is bringing in, that everybody agrees with, that Labour agrees with, the cut in the national insurance increase that Rishi Sunak implemented, the freezing of corporation tax for 19 rather than taking it to 25%, which many small businesses, including small business owners here, will cheer. They'll try and move the narrative on, and they may well succeed depending on the financial markets. But even if they do move it on, this will go down on their record in the history books as a pretty rocky start.
It will. Liam, thank you so much. Liam Halligan there.